Still the Place with Laura Layton,
Courtney Thorne-Smith,
and Daphne Zuniga, an iHeartRadio podcast.
I'm trying a new pair of glasses today.
Are you?
And I'm not sure how they're going to go. So I will be able to see better, which is good. But I feel like I look like a little bit of a crazy person. Here
But
we go.
wait.
Oh, really? No, you look like the sexy librarian.
Oh,
it's a
thanks.
really
All
good
right,
look.
I'm going
bringing
with
a
that for
whole new
today.
audience. I
That's-
like
Are
it.
those reading
Very
glasses?
Yes, I need them to read.
So
And
are they
I-
new because is it a new prescription? Are your eyes getting worse?
It's because
rest
my
of us?
the ones that I regularly use somehow are somewhere in my house. I can't find them, so I grabbed another pair, and this is the one I'm
okay.
You
using
can't
today.
see them because you don't have your glasses. It's crazy vicious cycle.
It's really hard being me.
No, it's the eyes. It's just a whole adventure that you don't hear about.
I
you know?
refuse to get readers. Do you have readers?
I used to, but then I got, it's called, then there's the brain that has that whole thing.
Did you get the
happens.
LASIK?
I did. It's like refractive cataract
wow.
surgery I got.
See, I would get that laser if it did something for my skin. The eyes,
you
I
have.
which I do. I did just get a laser.
Yeah.
We couldn't meet last week because I got a laser on my face. How do I look,
good.
ladies?
You look stunning.
Pretty good. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm scared. But I did it on my eyes. I got laser on the eyes. They're amazing. I can see up close and I can see far away with no glasses.
I might need to ask
I
you more about
totally,
this.
totally recommend it.
All right.
I
Well, for
do
now, I'm
eye
just going to be this
exercises.
librarian.
Our
Conversations used to be different when
But
we were
I recommend, but seriously, listen, the Bates method, it's eye exercises and they do work because my eyes started to go and then I do these eye exercises and they're back. And I'm 56 and I still don't use readers.
Fantastic.
Little tiny, I can read this little tiny thing.
That's great.
All right. Well, for now,
Wow.
I'm going to wear glasses, and I'll ask
Okay.
you about.
Okay. We all have
All
our
right.
solutions.
Got that settled.
Yours is good.
What happened to us?
Hey, it's better than the
happens so
alternative, as they
fast.
say. Better than the alternative.
So we heard that people are asking about my dresses. And I will say this, I'm wearing a shirt by the same company. It's a wonderful company out of Malibu called Belle by Alicia Bell. And I
Oh,
love their dresses and I love their shirts and I'm glad people are noticing it because it's a company I absolutely love.
well, first of all,
You
The
look great
closet
in them.
looks like their store. They're like the fabrics look.
It's
pretty.
amazing.
And then they've got these. I don't know if you at home can hear my necklace, but this is attached to the shirt. This adorable little
Oh, cute.
thing. They've got these little extras. What would you call this? Almost like a necklace. It's this really pretty button and some sparkly.
you sure
things.
that's not one of those security necklaces that seniors have? You push it and they come.
You can see there's little pearls. Anyway, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous
Very
company.
suspicious.
I highly recommend them.
Well,
Very
wait,
pretty.
can I ask a question? Because when we
Yes.
were doing our photo shoot,
Yes.
you had these beautiful dresses, and it was Misa Los Angeles.
I did
Do
have
you
a Miss
also
Los
wear
Angeles
those?
dress, but the one that you wore in the photo shoot
Yeah.
was a Belle by Alicia Bell.
Okay.
And then, Laura, you borrowed one that was Doan.
Well,
I
look
mean,
at you.
she's
with
just
all
like
these
the
dresses
dress
in
Brought
your
lots and
closet.
lots of pretty dresses.
Beautiful dresses.
Thank you.
So
And
Belle
I noticed yeah.
and Misa.
And
Doan.
Doan has some gorgeous dresses.
Yeah. Peasantry kind of
Today,
things.
just by accident, we all ended up in.
I know. I'm
blue.
like the
Look at
Very
us.
well coordinated.
East
the
Coast
same
preppy
page,
little
people.
checkers and have you guys beautiful, feminine, and casual California. I feel like me sitting over here is kind of like I'm doing a seminar here, and there will be tests on the Melrose episode 3. Well, we have mostly stuff to ask Court, or I do, because you were there. We weren't there yet. And again, I'm really enjoying watching and going back and not being in it because I just get to sit back and see. Like I almost made popcorn because it's such a fun era, the 90s, and just watching you guys. And you're doing such a great job. And I don't know about you, Laura, but I'm enjoying not being in it.
It's such a different experience to watch these early episodes that our characters weren't in yet, and then to know like, oh, I know where it's going, but I just don't have like an experience of what it was at that time, and it is going in another direction. We know that it's going somewhere else, and we're only on episode 3 of our recaps right now. I mean, we're so shallow.
I mean, the
in
drama
the depth
in these
of where,
episodes versus the drama that comes later are a little different.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Matt and Rhonda have a little tete-a-tete, and you know,
we've just dipped our toe in the
but
beginning.
it's great.
So
I had the same thought. Like this really was like 8 kids trying to make it, right?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing dramatic happens. It really is very sweet, small stories of us all getting to know each other.
Yeah. And to that point, that kind of like leads me into our first episode here. But I got to see how much they leaned into Billy being a writer, really trying to be a writer, what he came here for, And by the time I came in the middle of the first season, like, I didn't know no one knew what he was, right? Because he's already into all the drama of the show. But this episode is specifically of him, like, pouring out his heart and soul and using his imagination, writing the great American screenplay.
Mm-hmm. All right, Daphne, you go. You get us going.
Okay,
on
that's a great segue.
the recap.
All right. So this episode 3, season 1, is called Lost and Found, and it aired on July 22nd, 1992. So here's the synopsis. Jane feels lonely due to Michael's late nights as the doctor. So Rhonda takes her to Shooters, where they meet 2 guys and have a wild night until Jane loses her wedding ring. This gave me stress, this one. Billy finishes his script, but Allison thinks it's awful and can't help him. Meanwhile, Jake breaks up with Kelly, finally, by staging a scene with an actress friend of Sandy's, making him look bad, like a terrible guy. Heartbroken, Kelly leaves Jake for good. I mean, finally. It's so funny. Like, how many episodes he's like, how bad this is, and yet he keeps like making out with her and like leading her on. Anyway, I think it's finally over. So we'll do the cast, starring Josie Bassett as Jane, Thomas Calabro as Michael, Amy Locane as Sandy, Doug Savant as Matt, Grant Show as Jake, Andrew Shue as Billy, Courtney Thorne-Smith as Allison Parker, and Vanessa A. Williams as Rhonda Blair. Created by Darren Star. I hope we get Darren in these, by the way, to come visit. And then special guest is Ginny Garth and Brian Austin Green and Ian Ziering as their 90210 characters. So this is a really fun opening, I thought. We open in this, it's called the Blue Room Club. It's a jazz club. It's like the 40s, a period piece, and Billy's at the bar. His hair is slicked back. He's in a suit, and he saunters over to a woman in a red dress doing a dance.
Weren't you so confused? He came out in slicker. I was like, "What is happening?"
Totally in the beginning.
It was ring any sort of bells.
Totally.
I was like,
It
what
was
is
immediately
happening?
like
was
you
like
could
a
tell
cold
it was
open.
it was an attempt at noir, but the girls seemed to be setting the tone and the era, and I got it. And then Billy was like sort of being Billy, and it was a
With
little
his
bit
hair
confusing.
back. What's happening?
Yeah. So I mean, I did get pretty quickly into the scene, going, okay, this is Billy's imagining of noir, and it was very
I was like,
sort
is
of.
it a dream?
Yeah.
Is he who's that? Then I was like, where's Allison? Because
Yep.
apparently
Yeah.
my ego's very invested. I was like, who's that lady again? What's happening?
Yeah.
But it was basically another one of Billy's sort of imaginings and flashbacks without the.
But I think too, because we all keep forgetting he was a writer.
I know.
So it's coming out of
it
nowhere
becomes
for
very
us.
clear here in this opening scene that that's what he's doing. Very LA of him to be coming to
Totally.
LA and wanting to write his screenplay.
I mean, his, this was over the top, and you're going like, God, it's too over the top. And there's a gun, and she says really like, cliche statements. You look good, kitten, real good. And if you get time, I'll come visit you. If you get the chair, I'll still come visit you. They have a gun. It goes below frame. It goes off. I mean, and you're going, this is really bad. Well, it's his screenplay, because he hears Allison saying, Billy, Billy, Billy. And then all of a sudden we're in the apartment, and he's typing his script. So you're going, oh, maybe his script isn't, it's kind of like foreshadowing. Like maybe it's not going to be that good. Kind of like the over the topness that we just saw. That's what I thought. So anyway, Allison's there, and he's typing his screenplay.
Well, then it goes to the pool where Michael is skimming the pool and Jane is like hanging on him. Do you guys remember that? He's skimming the pool and she is just like hugging him from behind and kissing, like this massive display out on the poolside. And they're like, what? And did you notice that?
Well, there's an ongoing theme already of the gorgeous Josie, like all over this
know.
guy
He's
who's
like
I
almost
don't-
like,
couldn't
I'm
possibly-
busy.
couldn't
And he's like,
possibly,
I'm sorry, I'm
the
trying
pool's here.
I'm trying to skim the pool. And she's like, but I'm trying to get something started. That was a lot. And they're making out.
And I have a kissing count, by the way, because that is one of our categories, and I finally paid attention. So it was our first kiss because in the script, in the jazz bar, they don't actually kiss. They come really close. They quiver the lips, but they don't kiss.
Oh, I didn't even count that because they're married.
Oh, I think it
Well,
counts.
they
Of
counted
course,
like
it should count. That was so bourgeois
they're not
of me.
actually
Oh, my
married,
God, I didn't
Courtney.
even
Remember?
count their mind.
Did you count them like in the?
That's
okay.
wrong.
We'll get
It's
to
so
the end where it
wrong.
was worth more than. I gave it 5 kisses for that last.
The
one.
reference is there. She's like, we're gonna have Pink's hot dogs and watch Ghost, like the movie, and all these like references to
I know.
yeah,
90s stuff and
Yeah.
LA stuff. Yeah, for
romantic
sure.
movie.
And then we're
She really doesn't seem to understand that he's a medical resident.
Yeah.
It seems to be a constant source of
Yeah.
confusion for her that he's busy. Like,
Yeah.
does she not watch The Resident on Fox? Does she not know like how busy these poor guys are?
It's as confusing as
We're
he
watching
is
that right
that
now.
she's gorgeous, and you should maybe be a
Well,
little
I
bit more
think
responsive.
The thing is, like, she doesn't have.
They both
any,
need glasses. You should tell them about glasses.
There's
She doesn't
glasses.
have
for
any
that.
regrets
Just
for
take one
marrying
look
this.
at her.
You know, this is foreshadowing like a future when you marry a doctor, like. You know, and this is, you don't see him now. It's not going to get much better. Like, don't you think
Well, it
this
gets better
sometimes
after
she's going to
residency,
go?
though. Remember, they work like 30-hour shifts, but it feels like it's constantly
I don't know what
confusing
they
for her
work,
that
yeah.
she's surprised that he's
I
not
played a
home on time
medical
for
school
dinner.
one. That's medical, but I don't remember. Like, I don't, you know, I definitely didn't marry a doctor. So,
Nor have we played a doctor on TV. Which
well,
would
I
also
did,
be
but
a
no, as a
way.
medical student, and I do. Anyway, whatever. We can go off on that. I do remember some stats about medical students and doctors for sure. They're not fun. So yeah, she's trying to make out by the pool, and then we're down in the basement, and Sandy walks downstairs, and Jake is folding clothes, and Jake jokes that it's sheets he's folding, and that he only washes his sheets when he's had someone in his apartment, and who was
Gross.
it?
Well, she says that.
She implies that like,
She
oh, you're
says-
washing sheets because
yeah.
somebody's coming.
And then everybody
Right.
in our own homes went, ugh.
Yeah,
Because that's
yeah.
very
Yep.
intimate.
Yeah,
And uncomfortable
and he goes, "We're
for
just
everybody."
friends," but she wants more. Duh, the understatement of the century. And but he says it's over, and she's like,
Which, based on what? Because last episode, it seemed pretty hot and heavy, right? They ride off on the motorcycle.
"Yeah, it's going to be
So
over." He has
apparently
a plan.
something happened between episodes.
No,
that suddenly
it's
they're
going to
friends
be
again.
over this episode.
I know.
He has a plan
but
to end
But
it.
he's acting. I felt like he was acting like we're just friends, and I'm thinking, well, you're giving her very mixed signals then, because last time
yeah.
you kissed her and rode off on your motorcycle.
100% mixed
Of course, mixed
Thank you,
signals.
Laura.
100% mixed signals.
Well, of course,
Yeah.
mixed signals.
Yeah.
And of course, he's saying to somebody else, "We're just friends." So if there's any perception, then it's her fault, the little
Yes.
girl's fault. But he's not saying to her, "Definitely, we're best friends." So he's going to her house and taking her on the motorcycle. It's of course, it's like a game out of the playbook of this grand show that we keep saying like Jake's is stand-up man. I guess that comes later. All right, this is the 90s, sign of the times. The next scene is the Gap store.
Big old Gap
where the
ad.
90210 kids walk through. And they walk through this Gap store, and the minute they came on, I saw all those lacrosse shirts in the back with the thick stripes. Did you guys see that? I was just like, it was so 90s.
The rugby
with the white
shirts, yeah.
collars, the rugby shirts,
Yep.
yeah, with the white collars. Those were all there, and those
Yeah,
guys. And I totally
Ian's
noticed.
mullet makes one more appearance.
Yeah,
and he got to keep his sunglasses on for the entire scene
Yes.
inside.
I was so surprised by that. That
I
was
was
weird,
too.
wasn't
Yep.
it?
And
That was
inside.
distracting.
But it was a choice, and they
Maybe
let him
he had
go.
a
With
real
it. It was
black eye.
It
early.
must have been, maybe he has pink eye or something, because that was really weird. Like they were dark, like couldn't
Although
see any
I will
eyes
say
through
that
them.
Doug got to wear the character of Matt got to wear some sunglasses later in the episode too, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Episode 3 of Melrose, and they're still letting people keep their
Still
sunglasses.
finding their
on.
way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Later, we'll see
Before
that
Aaron
nobody's
really
going to
put
wear
the
them.
kibosh
Before
on
Aaron has seen an
sunglasses.
episode or two. Well, maybe this is the time that he decides no more.
Yeah,
For later.
Daphne tried to work sunglasses into our photo shoot for our podcast. And you're like, that's adorable. Put them down.
Yeah, I
Still
know.
not.
I know. Gave me PTSD, but triggered me, by the way.
Totally
30 years later, I can wear these if I want.
Apparently
You're not Aaron. Yeah, that was funny. So,
But also the calling 5 times a day. Talk about sign of the times. Nobody's texting, right? Kids watching must be like, why don't you just text them? We're like, no, we didn't have texting.
Yeah.
Right.
We had car phones that
Right.
were the size of our torsos, but nobody was
You
texting.
call him, you mean
I
the
didn't
line,
think we
you
were
call-
emailing then.
No,
No, we
there
weren't
weren't
even
any
emailing
computers.
yet.
No.
wasn't a thing. That's why there's payphones everywhere. In exactly when the next scene in Jane's boutique, and she's calling, or Michael's calling Jane to let her know that he has to be on call all night. And he's like whispering in the on-call room, like, honey, I can't make it, right? And he's like, it's like the hardest thing in the world to tell her that he can't go. But he's on a payphone in the break room of the
Was that
hospital.
a payphone?
It was a payphone on the wall in the break room, I think.
Oh my God, they're so cheap, these hospitals.
It was so bizarre. But like, did you guys notice what the rest of the doctors were doing at the table?
They are.
No.
They were playing cards. Like, what doctors on their break are going to go and like start a poker game in the break room? I thought that was so funny. They're playing cards in there, and he's like whispering, like, did he not want anybody to know he has a wife?
I thought
like,
it was
why
weird.
is he like so?
I thought it was weird that he was so quiet about
Right.
it.
He's like, oh, ooh,
Like he
so-
was carrying on with somebody there or something.
Right. It was like he was trying to keep it a secret. He's talking to
You
his
guys have
wife.
a whole story happening. You're stepping ahead to the really dramatic Melrose.
Courtney, you need
Yeah.
glasses if
To
you
season
didn't notice
two.
that.
To season 2. We see
You
it
need to wear your
happening.
glasses when you watch this, so you can notice things like card players.
I like
and,
it. I
yeah,
like where you're going
whispering
with
phone
this.
calls.
Nice. The show's much more exciting for you.
So that's Jane trying to reach out again. She's all excited about this Pink's plan, and it's not going to happen, right? So we set up. She's upset. She hangs up, and then we're with Allison at D&D Advertising, and Allison's on the phone at the reception when Billy shows up with his screenplay.
The Big Shock. I love that
Big
the name of
Shock.
it is The Big
I
Shock.
know.
Poor boy is going to be shocked. So he leaves the script for her to read. That's so weird, but okay. Anyway.
Weren't you sure when he said it's the only copy? Be careful that I was going to leave it somewhere. I was like, oh, I'm going to leave it on the bus somewhere.
And didn't they have Kinkos back in the 90s? I don't remember. Maybe not.
Well, he must have typed it out by hand,
It
right?
must be still
By
hot.
one finger at a time. Did you not notice? It takes him a really long time to type.
He's not going to go all the way to a
He
printing
had to use his
store.
fingers. Just the two of them, one on each hand.
But he's build it up. His excitement. I feel like a real writer now. It feels so good.
I feel like a real writer.
it feels so good. And, you know, when you, yeah. So,
Oh, poor baby.
Poor
I
guy.
know, it was very cute. And then we get to use the pool. We cut to the pool scene. First time somebody's using the pool in this episode. Jane's in her bathing suit, getting out of the pool.
Doing laps. Very well done. Nice,
Yep.
nice exercise.
Nice use of the pool.
can we talk about that bathing suit since we're talking about the 90s?
I mean,
That amazing bathing suit.
yeah.
I thought that bathing suit, like, so much pops out of me in each scene. Sometimes it's set dressing, sometimes it's a payphone, sometimes it's a line, but this time it was the bathing suit. Just the design, wasn't it like aqua and purple with thick black? I don't know. It just was so 90s.
Well, and Josie looks great in it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then also Sandy was there with her cute little bustier, which was so cute.
And that's where Sandy's suggesting that Jane needs to come to Shooters that
Yeah.
night and have a night out instead of waiting up for her doctor
Yeah.
husband.
Anyway, so she's like, come on out and have fun, right?
She double dog dares her to go out.
Oh, yeah. A double dog dare ya. Then we're back at the hospital, and Jane shows up with, I think, probably Pink's hot dogs and candles and food and wants to bring the surprise to him. And he's so ungrateful, this guy.
And but also here's where the other doctors and people that are in the break room are like, ooh, this is awkward.
Yeah.
We should leave so awkwardly because, ooh, this guy's wife just showed up. Like, what is that about? Like,
I
what's
know,
awkward
it
about
makes
the
it
wife
seem
showing
like
up?
there's something going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know,
they
why
were
would it be this?
so
This is my
waiting
wife.
for
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
good
it
to meet
should
you.
have been.
Yeah, I
And he's
thought
like,
that was weird
ooh,
too.
eek, Jane, ooh, everybody, this is my
Cringe.
wife. Like
this hot
apologetically. What
babe
the heck?
is so
Yeah.
awkward.
He's so embarrassed by his hot wife.
His
I
own
know,
wife.
you're
Like,
right.
why is that embarrassing?
yeah.
Yeah, poor Jane.
I mean, those tall 3 candles were a bit much. I was a little like, what
It's
are
okay.
we
It was
doing?
cute.
But
Like if your
it was
wife
cute.
shows up to do that, why is everybody going?
Yeah.
Eek, ooh, I better sneak out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, you're right. That was weird.
Yeah, not nice.
Next time we see her, she's at Shooters with Rhonda, picking up 2 guys that are looking at them.
Yeah. So here's where these 2 guys come into the bar, and we can see that Jane's going to start to entertain the idea of like, okay, maybe I'll pretend to be.
Yeah, and did you
Single,
guys
because
recognize
Sandy-
Nestor Carbonell from Everything?
Nestor Carbonell,
Right?
who's
He's
had a
been in
giant
everything.
career.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on Psych, which is one of my favorite shows.
Yep.
He was
I was
the guy on Psych.
wondering.
Yep.
But he's been on everything,
Yeah.
like Monk. I think all those shows I love. He's been on.
Yeah,
all
he's
of them.
he's got a
It's fun to
huge
see him.
career. He
And
was
it made me
morning
so-
show. He's doing he's
Yeah,
on morning show recently.
A
Yeah.
million things, and
Yeah.
made me so excited as we
That's
start to
what-
see the guest stars come through.
Yep.
Like, oh, that's right,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right, that's
Oh,
right.
he also had-
so many people come through.
He was on Lost.
Yes.
Suddenly Susan. Dark Knight. I mean, he's done a
Suddenly
ton of
sees
stuff.
him. He's been in everything. It's fun
And
to see him.
our kids were in baby group together, mommy and me.
Oh, really?
We had our babies
that's
in a baby group together. Yeah,
adorable.
small world.
Well, this is
small
probably one of
world
his
moment.
first things, you know?
I wonder if it was because he was sort
Seems
of quiet,
it.
like he
Yeah.
hadn't quite come into himself
Yeah.
yet.
I think he'd just done a few things, but he's definitely had a
So
giant
he played
career.
Alex.
giant
He's the
career.
one that pursued Rhonda.
Yes.
That's who we mean. But at this point, Jane decides to hide the ring, right?
Well,
Hide her
Sandy
wedding ring?
suggests it. Hey, you're not going to get anybody flirting with you if you have a wedding ring on,
Just a
and
series
Jane's
of-
like, I think I want people flirting with me, so she takes it off.
Yeah, so she takes off her ring, puts it in her pocket.
Which is probably why they had to have Michael be so awful to motivate her to do
Yeah.
this pretty extreme thing of going
Yeah.
to a bar
Yeah.
to pick up guys.
Yeah, for
pretty
sure.
You
pretty
can't go home
extreme.
and watch a show. Like
Yeah.
what? Like what?
Like you thought that was a good idea.
This is your next step.
Yeah.
All right.
Then we cut to the courtyard where I keep wanting to say you over there, where Allison walks through the courtyard and she's kind of doesn't know what to do. And Matt is leaving and says, there's a party in Laurel Canyon where I was living, by the way.
Maybe it was your party. You weren't on the show yet. Maybe he was going to your party.
Maybe I was having a party.
Probably was.
Up in Laurel Canyon. Anyway, I love those LA shout outs. And she's like, no, I have a really difficult thing ahead of me. I had to read Billy's script. And he says, how is it? And she's like, awful.
And
The worst.
here's Matt's entrance for the episode, like just being cute, supportive friend, going, "You got this. I think you can do this. Just let him down."
That was
he
mostly
says-
his role.
He's just
I
always the
know.
No,
good
he
friend.
said lie.
Like, yeah.
Lie.
Well, first
Lie.
he said, lie,
he
and
should've.
then he turned it around and said, "All right, just
Yeah.
be gentle, let him down easy. Pat, I'm the best friend. Bye." Scene exit.
Yeah.
And that was his appearance for the episode. Yeah. It's supportive.
But that always is the question, what do you do?
Yep.
What do you say? I'm with lie.
You're on Team Lie.
Well, I've seen this episode now and it doesn't end up good. But it does end up, they do end up, dealing with it. But it does hurt his feelings. So now we're back in Shooters and Jane and Rhonda at the bar talking with the guys, making small talk. And they are aspiring rock stars.
Of course.
Shocker. They look
Such
like
an
it.
LA.
Yeah. So LA.
Aspiring rock stars.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so he goes, do you have a boyfriend or something? And she makes another decision. And she says, no, not exactly, implying that, but does not say that she's married. But
Yep.
she doesn't have a boyfriend.
She didn't lie, but she
So
didn't
she
tell
didn't
the truth.
lie. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, then Billy comes home. And I think you're making tuna casserole.
What a disgusting choice.
Is it the 50s?
It is.
Why
it
tuna
smells-
casserole,
already
Allison?
smells. I'm like, oh my god, I can smell
Are
that
you
apartment.
like
What are you
45,
doing?
50?
Am I trying to upset him in advance?
I think.
What is happening?
But like you always say, you were traumatized by them serving tuna on set.
oh,
right?
maybe they just had extra tuna.
Maybe,
Oh, maybe
I
the
think
writers are like,
that's
you
all
know
the
what?
props.
Into a casserole.
Right? And they really wanted it to be like method acting.
That's
Like
funny.
We want it to
Exactly.
smell like tuna casserole, so it can.
Maybe they were
that's
getting
what they're
back at
actually
you.
eating. 'Cause that's what- yeah.
So anyway, you're in the kitchen. You don't really want to see him. You're making the tuna, and he's just, of course, assuming his script is amazing. He stays in the living room. He's like, oh man, but he had a horrible day. But thank God, the script, when he sells this, everything's going to change. Oh, you're making something. So he's assuming you're making him dinner to celebrate.
I know, it's so sad.
But she doesn't have the guts to tell him in that moment.
No, and there's so many things between it's brilliant and it's awful. There's so many choices she could have made. I wish she had someone to say, why don't you say it could use some work?
Yeah.
Which, we've all heard as creative people in
Yes,
the world. We've
I mean,
all
that
heard.
is- yeah.
There's a lot of potential. How about that? Like start with there's a lot of potential, but it needs some work.
You do say at the end, finally he earns it. You say you do it, or somewhere you say you do have talent. And I was like, well,
Finally.
thank you, throwing him a little nugget.
Start there, Allison. Start there.
Yeah.
All right, but then we get to the grocery store where Kelly and Jake are grocery shopping for dinner together, which is like a completely
And
romantic
this was
choice.
my
Yep.
line because we had this. This was my line that I wrote down. Spending a nice, quiet evening at your place, making it together. The lasagna, I mean.
Yeah.
Right.
Didn't see that coming. I
Right.
mean, wink, wink, shimmy, shimmy.
You know,
Yeah.
they really put her over the top. Everything out of her mouth, every action of hers, everything is just this pursuing.
But also, she's so young. I
Yeah.
was not that aggressive at that age. It's so much.
Yes.
Are kids that different? Like,
Well,
yeah, but also he's giving her such mixed messaging. He's planning
leading her on.
he's planning to let her down, but he's decided to like, let's do a quiet romantic night at home. We'll
Yeah,
grocery shop
to let her
together,
down.
and then we'll bring
Yes.
this to home.
Should've been
Like the
coffee
whole thing
shop.
was just like a what choice is that?
Confusing her.
If you're trying to actually let her down,
so
and, like,
indirect. Yeah, like, can you
very
just have a
mixed
conversation? The answer is
messaging, for
clearly
sure.
not. Clearly cannot.
And here again in the grocery store is the other example of where he reveals that he doesn't have enough money because he can't afford the grocery bill when it
Oh,
comes up.
that was brutal.
Yeah. And
That was brutal.
she, instead of trying to bail him out, it's like, okay, just maybe take.
And apparently no credit cards. Apparently they live in a cash-based society.
Yep.
No credit cards.
Another awkward moment showing that he doesn't have the money and maybe she does. But still.
So awkward.
yeah.
But those were the days when you could buy a dinner for $40. You can't get out of the market for $40 these days. Or it's very hard,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Everything's
no,
so
no,
expensive
no.
now. Food is so expensive right now.
Yeah. True. So they leave the grocery store. He's humiliated once again. And then we're at Shooters, and they're playing pinball, and they're being really flirty. Rhonda's being incredibly flirty. And Josie, I felt like, was trying to be flirty, but with the pinball machine and stuff. And
Well, Jane
she's trying to
was-
have a good single time, you
Yeah.
know? Like, she's not sure how to do it. And so she's like, oh, boy, I was
And then
like
she
queen
got-
pinball in high school. You know, it's like...
And then
But-
she got very close to like getting out of there, like no harm,
Yeah.
no foul. But
Right.
you know, then
Could've been home on
Rhonda
time.
talks her out of it and says, "Please stay, be my wingman for the night, and
We're
please,
going
I
out to
can't do this.
club.
Yeah,
They
please."
want to go to a club.
So Jane decides not to go home and decides to stay with Rhonda instead. Another bad
Go out
choice,
with the
Janie
boys.
Jane.
So many.
To
Yep.
another club.
Could have gone
Yeah.
another way if you'd just gone home.
So then we're back with Billy. They're eating. I think they're eating the tuna casserole, and he's going through the scenes bit by bit, just like, God, he's making it so hard, isn't he?
I know. He's so excited.
Yeah, he's so excited. He's like, what about this? And then you're like, you know, you mean the one where what was it? The transvestite nun or something. Like, you're making it obvious that it was really bad.
I don't remember that moment.
The ending. You don't remember that one?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I think
do.
I think I
It was
like.
funny.
And he's like,
glazed
yeah,
over
what's
a
wrong
lot.
with that? The transvestite who used to be a nun.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
But she tells him the truth. Like, I hated
Yeah.
everything about it.
and he's
Yeah.
so hurt and indignant. Well, what do you hate? Please be more specific. Which I think, you know, he deserves. But he can't handle it, and he just storms out.
And insults my casserole, which, I mean,
It was
come
tuna
on.
casserole.
Obviously,
Yeah.
most of my self-esteem is based on my disgusting tuna casserole, and you're not allowed to put it down. And then, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. We're just yelling, just like you have no taste, just like your lousy casserole. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Those lines make me laugh
Yeah.
so hard.
That was a big fight. He storms out of the apartment.
I know.
Jane is dancing with Peter.
We're in the new club. So now we're at the
Oh,
club
yeah.
that the guys took them to. You know, she's really out of her league and a place that's not familiar. And the guy's dancing really closely with her. Did you notice the extras and everything that they were wearing? And like, it just seems to me like all of the 90s always had a nightclub scene. And like everything I ever did, there were like a nightclub with these extra outfits with the, you know, the short skirts, the ones that were like Band-Aids basically, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
these heels and like smoke pumped in. I just reminded me of the 80s and 90s, like
Yeah, Josie's
hardcore.
dress was so short.
So
It
short.
was so short.
Yep.
But I
Yeah.
think it was less about the 90s and more about how old we were. Because say the three of us did a movie now, they wouldn't put us in a nightclub. They put us in a bake-off.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was just that when you're young,
Yeah.
like your characters are going
That's
to clubs
what we're
and
doing.
meeting at
Yeah.
clubs, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we did. And that is
Yeah.
what I did on weekends then.
Yeah, I know.
Right? That's what we
Yeah.
did.
I just get a kick of looking at these scenes now because it looks like it's just such background, you know, with all the drinks. They're either like bright red and orange or maybe there's a blue. I don't know. I just really pulled me into working as an actor back in that era. And it looked very, very familiar to me. But at any rate, So they're dancing, and once he gets too close, she's like, no, I got to go sit down. So she goes to sit down, but he follows her, reciting poetry, right? Thinking he's going to win her over with his like artistic, poetic type. And she's like, yeah, I know that poet.
Yeah, she majored in romantic literature.
She minored.
Who knew?
She
Oh,
minored in romantic.
Did she
lit,
major in fashion?
Or
Probably.
engineering?
Yeah,
right.
Or engineering.
Yeah, no,
Fashion and engineering
sure.
also.
Yes,
But I was
as you do.
Look at her being smart. That was
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, minored in romantic lit.
Yeah.
Recognized the passage. He tries to kiss her, and she
Finally,
turns away.
finally
Yep.
says no.
Yeah, and then she finally says, why? I'm married. I like you, but I'm married. And he's like, yeah, no, you don't have a ring. And she's like, oh, God, okay. She reaches for her ring in her pocket in the booth of the table there, and there's no ring, and it's gone.
Oops. So then she finds herself crawling on the floor in her tight little black dress,
Yep.
looking for her ring. So
Yep, all over the
Jane-
place. And of course, Rhonda feels horrible when she finds out, and but now we're back in, let's see how it's going with Jake and Kelly, how that breakup's going. Okay, so we're back in Jake's apartment.
And he's awkwardly cutting onions.
By the way, it's not awkwardly. He's cutting onions to turn her off. I figured that out.
Oh, you did?
Yes, close up on a big onion, big red juicy onion. He's crying. He's like, oh God, this is painful, but I've got to get her off of me. And she's like almost like crawling up into his, and he's like cutting onions. Maybe that'll send her off. No, apparently Kelly likes purple onions. So
All right.
she's all over him, and then she like leads into the.
I'm going to go back for a second. Why are her parents letting her go to dinner in a man's apartment?
I think her parents don't know. We haven't really touched on that, have we? Her parents. That
don't
they
know.
exist at all.
They think she's at
I mean, she's just out
a
doing her thing.
girlfriend's house.
Yeah.
That's probably true. All right.
I mean, oh yeah, her mama just had a baby. I don't know. There's all this backstory we don't quite see
Right.
to explain.
Right.
But yeah, they're making this dinner, and Kelly's kissing him, and it's clear that she wants, and he just keeps sort of like blowing
Kissing
her
her back
off
a
and,
little
like,
bit,
giving
then
me a little
pulling back and
distance and
kissing her
pushing
a
back.
little
I
bit.
don't want to do this, even though I set up this romantic dinner. I really don't want to do this. I really don't want you kissing on me. Very
Do you
mixed
see how
messaging
wrong
here.
this is? What's wrong with you, girl?
Yep.
Don't you get the message? And it's
Yep.
like, I have an onion and everything.
Don't you get the message in my apartment while I'm cooking for you? It feels very
Yes,
clear to
and
me.
I'm
I've sent you very mixed messages.
you
Aren't you
kiss my
picking
neck?
that?
And then the phone rings, and she says, this is another 90s, let the answering machine get it.
Yep. We all had an answering machine.
So it's ringing and ringing, and it starts to have an answer. Someone starts to speak, and then he runs to get it and picks it up. But do you guys remember your first answering machine?
And weren't you worried that someone was going to leave an inappropriate message
Yes,
on the
yeah.
machine?
Raising
The whole
those
thing.
answers.
Remember, right.
He was worried because he went to pick it up like quick
Yeah.
before that happens because
Yeah.
it goes out loud. Your message just like
Right.
broadcasts.
Yeah,
right out
I
loud.
know, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that whole other, like, I don't know if I guess you don't have that now with the phone, but like when you leave a message, if it's an awkward one for someone, is someone going to be listening? Like,
Yeah.
is it going to be turned up loud? Are
Right.
there roommates? Usually the guys that I liked always had roommates. They were never.
Yeah, you got to be really careful about what you're saying out on speakerphone.
Yes, for sure.
But we find out that the person on the other line is like planning to, and he's whispering.
Well, we
"Just
don't know
be
yet.
any,
We
don't
don't
be
know
any
yet.
later than 10:30."
Yeah, that's right. Right. That's all he says. Anyway, she doesn't get the message because, well, we'll come back to them in a minute. But first, we're going to go to Shooters, where Billy is sitting absolutely crushed, fiddling with the mix, the bar mix there, and all alone at the bar at Shooters. And then Allison shows up, and they have a meaningful, friendly conversation. You know, was it really that bad? And so I thought that was a really, there was payoff there. And that, again, that's what I like about the show. Like, you do these things and they're like over the top or not very heartfelt, and then this comes, they're smart. Like, they bring you back, and this friendship is going to last through this.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have a friendship there, which is cool. So
But
you
she
give them
gives
a pep talk.
That was very sweet.
I
Yeah,
know.
believe in
Could have
yourself.
been handled better in the first
not-
place.
not
But
gonna
you know
be
what?
easy.
She did. She made her amends.
Well, he's drowning himself in sugar. He was sugar binging. like until you came along, he was
Trying to
going
say
to end
sugar's
up.
good for you. I'm like, I don't
No.
know that that's true.
No.
Well, we'll look at the science later.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's
Yeah.
right.
I do not think you know.
I don't think that's right.
So anyway, Jake, we're back with Jake and Kelly, and she clearly has gotten no message, and she's in the living room. She goes into the living room, I think, and turns down the light, off the light, and makes it a mood lighting in there. And she sits on the couch, and this poor little girl just is like, and he turns on the light, comes in, and they're on the couch, and, you know, he lets her kiss him and fall and tell him how great he is, of course. And he's waiting, I think, for 10:30 to show up, right? For someone to show up.
Yep. But again, why did he go to all the trouble to grocery shop, set up this romantic night at home?
Complicated than saying you
Yeah.
can't come over. See ya.
Yeah, like
Like,
we
wow,
shouldn't be
it's
doing this.
really-
Instead, he sets up a whole elaborate thing to have some, this next thing happen instead of like, don't set up the romantic dinner in the first place.
It's
Jake.
so true.
Yeah, like of
you
course
know,
she's not getting the
any
message.
Sitcom, right? If they had the conversation, there would be no story. So
Yeah.
you can't have the conversation because you need to fill whatever 42 minutes of screen time. So he has
Right.
to work his way around it.
Yeah.
But do we have a theme in this show of men not wanting to have sex with beautiful women?
What the heck?
Like, what is that? These beautiful women just hanging on
Except
these
if they're
men
married.
saying,
Except if they're married to like somebody else. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Well,
Interesting theme.
but there they are. They're interrupted by the knock at the door, and Jake goes to the door, and it is
Margot. Well, it's a woman who comes in and goes, oh gosh, here she comes in with a bottle of wine, a beautiful woman who's more his age, more age appropriate, and says, oh, and sees Kelly. And it's just like, what is going on? We're just one of many women. You think we're all just going to show up like this? You're two-timing me. We had a date. Kelly's like mortified. She just looks like this little sad puppy, like it does seem like overkill for a really innocent. I thought
seems
she
like
was
an
really good in
elaborate
it.
plan to
Yeah, right.
I think he thinks he's letting her down easy, but it's actually more confusing. Although maybe in the end, then she gets to say he's a jerk, and she gets to stomp
that's
off
why.
having the upper hand.
That's what he wants, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so
we're
he's
gonna-
really taking a bullet.
But
for
she
the
still
team.
leaves the apartment saying, "I loved you."
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
And I thought she was really good in this, Jenny. And I just felt you just really feel for her.
You
I thought
do
she
feel
was
for
really
her,
good.
yeah.
Like you pointed out with Jane and with Josie in the past, that vulnerability, which isn't always easy in a show like this, which is like such over the top kind of stuff. Or I just think it was cool. It grounded it. Anyway, so that's that. See ya. We'll see if that really is goodbye for Kelly. It's like he's tried to say goodbye a few times. We're back at the club, and Jane and Rhonda are crawling around for the wedding ring. They don't find it. It's a family heirloom. And then Peter says, "Why did you lie?" And she said, "I'm just I'm just been listening to the wrong people.
Wrong
I didn't
people
trust
meaning
my
Sandy.
own relationship."
Yep, Sandy, not
Yeah,
such a great
and Sandy.
person for advice, apparently.
Yeah.
So then we see that Rhonda did end up getting together with the guy that she met in the bar, and they're kissing in the courtyard as everybody's coming home.
As everyone seems to, the courtyard apparently is a fine place to make out.
Public
Any time of
display right
day,
there.
that's like-
Yeah,
You-
day
let's go to
night.
the courtyard. Want to make out? Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go outside.
Yep.
Yeah, let's go there.
Yep.
Especially if like it's right in front of where Michael, like her husband is, or where Jane lives, I mean, she's not making out, but still, they have this whole conversation. And I think that's that. You're a nice guy, but I gotta go. So he leaves, and Rhonda apologizes for forcing her to come out, and then Jane enters her an apartment and hears music. It's dark. There's a bottle of whiskey opened. Now, I wasn't sure here if that was his whiskey, I'm assuming, a manly man's drink, and the music he set to be romantic, but she didn't show because he comes out kind of pissed. It's not like he's waiting for her still. He's pissed now.
Well,
Well,
he
I
is
think
sort
that's
of
the setup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that she sees the whiskey and thinks he's there, he's mad at her, he's been there
Yeah, he's
alone.
mad at her.
That he actually did come home and set up something romantic, and he had an expectation of her being there, and then it turned out she was the one who was out, and she's got double guilt because she's also knowing that she lost the wedding ring
She
while having some
right.
bad behavior at the club. Mm-hmm. Don't.
before they get to the bedroom. So this was another kiss in my book, even though they're married, they totally start to make out. And what I thought was really moving was just their conversation there. Like, he's just like, God, it felt like forever. And I really love you. I think like he took a little, inventory. I was like, I don't want to waste her, which is good. Ultimately, it's good that it happened. I really don't want to take her for granted. I don't like things without her. And then they had that meaningful conversation, and then they make out in the kitchen, keep making out Melrose style, all the way to the bedroom, trip and make out their way into this candlelit bedroom and fall onto the bed.
Yep, heavy on the romance there. So she
Yeah.
can be
So
heavy
that's
on the
like,
guilt. Yeah.
I don't know. I gave that several
Yeah.
kisses, that one.
Yeah, I think that counts as more than one. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And then now where are we? We're here towards the end, and Billy's in the courtyard, not making out. He's burning his script. He's so dramatic. Burning his script page by page.
He's had some moments
on
at the
that
barbecue
grill.
in these
He
last few
does.
episodes.
It's very dramatic.
Yeah. And then she comes out in her bathrobe, the famous bathrobe, saying, "What are you doing? This is crazy." And
But at least he feels like having accomplished something that flopped was an accomplishment.
Yes, got it
at
out
all.
of his
And he-
way.
Yeah, got that one out of the way. And Allison ultimately made him feel like he could come to terms with that. So burn the script
Yeah.
and move on.
and write what you know, which is kind of like the writer's, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
As a writer?
Yeah. He's learned a lesson.
Write what you know.
Yeah. Still not thrilled how Allison handled it, but you know what? I'm getting over it.
So then we're at Shooters where Sandy is shooting pool. Jake walks in, wonders how his dinner party went. And he said, Kelly's gone. We're done. She says you did the right thing. But then we find out that he thinks that Kelly was the only person that ever made him feel good about himself. Jake reveals that to Sandy, and which is sort of an interesting idea. And then right then, Sandy hears from the busboy that something was found in the trash. Come look in the trash. And what do we think has turned up? But Jane's wedding ring.
A ring.
Yay.
The
We're
wedding
not
ring.
actually going to lose it
Yay.
after all.
Oh my goodness.
So then, as we cut back to Jane and Michael's apartment, they're lying in bed after, of course, their night of making love, and he tells her that he missed her. She's about to tell him, here's what I did. I lost the wedding ring, when there's another knock at the door, and it's Sandy, and she reveals that she's found this ring. Thank goodness.
And she covers and tells Michael, oh, well, she left this in the laundry room. And, I just thought you'd want it back. And
Yeah.
Jane kind of eyes her without Michael noticing. Thank you so much.
So Sandy actually saves her from having to admit the truth of what
Yeah.
happened. So all's well.
Yeah.
That ends well.
Yes. Thanks to our roommates in the Melrose Place apartment.
Yes.
Because we all get each other in trouble, but we
Yay.
cover for each other.
All's well. All the stories are becoming resolved.
Yay.
And I did sort of notice that was like the episode in general, is that everything gets sort of neatly wrapped up by the end and everyone learns a little bit of a lesson.
yeah, that was
right?
the early episodes.
Which is not at all the tone
By the
of the
time
show
you
later.
came on. Yeah.
Well,
No.
I don't think it was only me, but I think the tone of the show becomes there was cliffhangers, there
Yeah.
was, like blackmailing and drama and stuff like
Yes.
that, but cliffhangers and extended storylines that go. But
sure.
every episode that we've watched so far, everything is sort of neatly wrapped up by the end of the episode where everyone's learned their lesson. And like you pointed out last time, all the lessons that are being learned are sort of tied together. So like, like looking outside of where you should be looking for love in all the wrong places leads to, sort of the wrong thing. So, go back to what you know and go back to, stay in your lane and that sort of thing. Like everybody's sort of learning the same sort of lesson in their own way, in their own storyline, and just sort of neatly wrapping up at the end of each episode.
I think that's a technique. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it was like there's a kind of TV that happened back then that was like that, episodically, right? It tied in. And then this became more of what I think they call a serial, where it
Yeah.
just keeps going because it's just it really did change.
Yeah.
Technically.
When we become more of a
story-wise.
nighttime soap opera, we had storylines that carried over and
Yeah.
things that were ongoing. And also like so far at episode 3, we really only know like the Allison character and the Billy character and the Jake character and the Jane and Michael. Like we haven't really gotten to know much about Matt or Rhonda. Like we don't know what they're doing yet. Or even Sandy. She's really just there. We know she's an actress, but we haven't seen her have like a storyline of her own. She's really just there sort of supporting
Right.
Yeah.
Jake's storyline and being sort of like an advice giver or stick her nose in it person. Like, but we don't really know much about her yet storyline wise. But all these stories were neatly wrapped up.
Yeah.
And
They were all self-contained in the beginning.
So I ended up with the counts, the kiss count, because we were going to do this. I think when we thought of Melrose, that we're always kissing there. So we thought we'd start to this episode. I'm going with 16, just because
I will take your word for it.
Well, Rhonda and Alex, Grant and Kelly had 3 or 4. You know, Michael and Jane had 3, and then this major makeout, which I gave 5 to. And then there was
She's assigning general numbers to that. I give it a 5.
And then there was the peck that Jane gave him post-coital in bed, and I counted that as a kiss. So I'm at 16, which is not bad for Melrose Place, even though it gets steamier as it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel steamy at this point.
I loved seeing Nestor Carbonell way back then, and
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot of that.
So many
guest
more.
stars that have had huge careers, and it's so fun to see that we were all on Melrose back in the day.
Yeah, so much fun.
Super fun.
Excellent.
Yeah. So the next episode is number 4
Episode
in
4.
the original Melrose Place, and that will be. We'll see you next time.
I know, so
I'm still
excited.
Price.
Yay! I can't wait to see what you're wearing, Court.
I'm sure she'll have another cute dress.
In